tree is too far forward, so they're talking about moving that. But you do want these bushes up a little bit higher so you hide the vehicles in those. Because this is the delivery entrance. This is the outside. Most of the streetcars in the country stop. So now we're trying to revive. Drop in the bucket now.
Peanuts.
Yeah.
Peanuts, man.
Yeah. So, any other questions? You ready to ascend and move on? We'll find another spot or shade.
Brian, could you, thanks. Okay, Mecca. Come on, Mecca. Come on, Mecca. Good, Mecca. I got a praiser. Bismillahi.
$630 million. But don't worry, we put it on your children's credit cards. Because you're going to be spending your whole life paying for my Social Security and Medicare. And I can't pay for that. Okay.
There's 2.5 billion years of cash flow left on this planet. Perfect guard, Roy. Now be quiet. Perfect sneeze, Mecca. Hi, little dog.
So this flagpole means that the Senate is not in session. The flag flies only when they're in session. You can see the chandeliers in there. Those are beautifully frescoed rooms, reception rooms. But on the third floor, you see people stacking things in the windows. It's an indication of disorder.
Like
Can you
your
guess
office.
whose offices those are?
Your office.
No.
Oh.
My office is even worse than that.
Yeah, I
You
know
that,
your
Jay.
office. That's what I'm saying.
No, but this is disorder in the Capitol. So
Oh, okay.
who would have the most disorderly offices in the Capitol? The media. Those are press rooms. Now, they only get about this much space, so they stack things in the windows, but that's an indication. Everybody else keeps their windows nice and orderly, except the press.
Irish used to have a room on the second floor. Irish had a room up there off of the Senate cloakroom, and you could go in there. And
Who did?
Irish.
Irish?
Yeah, he was in charge of the room. It's right off the U.S. Senate cloakroom, and generals and lobbyists and stuff would hang out on the second floor, is it?
Yeah, that's where the chambers are.
Yeah.
Notice the tags on the trees.
The tags on the trees.
Yeah. Frederick Law Olmsted was designing landscapes like a painting, but he was using actual plants to do it. And he did not want you looking at individual plants. And so he didn't want them to stand out, and therefore these are not Olmsted trees, you can tell. Because that is a California redwood, and he would never have tortured a California redwood by putting it here. So people, the concept between a landscape and an arboretum is that in an arboretum you're looking at individual plants, and he didn't want that here. He wants it all to blend together so that you get a whole as a frame around the Capitol building. I mean, that's the same idea he was using in places like Niagara Falls or Biltmore or Central Park and so forth. But that is Olmsted's contribution to the concept of landscape architecture. Before that, they called it landscape gardening, and the leader was Alexander Jackson Downing, Andrew Jackson Downing. And Downing was supposed to do the park in New York, but he died in a great steamboat accident on the Hudson River. And so they recruited Olmsted, who changed the whole concept of Central Park and created the whole idea of landscape architecture. And this is one of his masterpieces. From here you can see probably 4 to 5 miles right straight up North Capitol. Somebody ought to do something with that.
You'd have to do a whole lot.
Yeah.
Drive up and down there.
Yeah. But to sponsor development, like they did the Pennsylvania Avenue Development Commission, they should do the same thing on North Capitol. But Olmsted knew that you would want to know about the plants and the trees, and so he designed the labels himself. Later on, they discovered that the insects were using the labels to get into the trees, so they've now put them on springs out away from the tree itself. But he wanted the origin and the Latin name and the popular name and the family. So he decided that.
Who did that?
Olmsted.
Oh, Olmsted.
Yeah.
Steve,
Yes.
when did they start putting this green up and keeping this
Well, this has been under construction since the Visitor Center started. It's been up since 9/11. And this was where they put all the temporary buildings they used for the architects and construction supervision. And so they've only put the grass back here in the last couple of years, and that's what this is about.
Yeah, they take it down and put it up and use events as excuses to leave it up longer than it should be, yeah.
But this, I don't think, has been taken down.
Yeah.
It's been up and down a couple of times, but not very
Well,
well.
in the 90s, you could never walk onto the grounds either.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know.
It's not going to keep any trucks off the grounds, all that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Before 9/11, you could access this, couldn't you, Jay?
so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. There were no fences here except during the concerts.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to walk around there all the time. They shut down the Capitol. It's like having your own private welcoming center.
Now here's an example of what Olmsted would not do. He did not want flowering trees or flowers at all around here because they detracted from the Capitol. So he wanted everything to kind of blend in. So he would have been opposed to putting flowers here, or dogwoods, or the magnolias, or the cherries. Oh, there's a 20-year plan. I have a copy of it. Now, here's an example of what not to do in architecture. See the building with the 2 flags?
Yeah.
There was an alternative proposal to that building, which was neoclassical, and which recognized that it had a prime view on the Capitol. In this case, you have a wonderful view from those offices there, but the building itself looks like one of those oversized cruise ships sailing away from the Capitol, showing its butt to the Capitol, which is, poor design, but the wrong developer got a hold of it. Of course, the building is owned by the National Association of Realtors, but unfortunately, the local Olmsted committee was meeting in that building because the guy who had the conference room that we could meet in was in there. informal committee about New Jersey having we tried to in order to say about that. This is a Japanese pagoda tree, and Olmsted, as was that other big one. So these would have been planted by Olmsted's crew in the 1870s, 1880s. Olmsted liked this tree because it has tiny leaves. And as he's painting the landscape, he wants some mottled shadows and some dark shadows. So he contrasts the big leaf trees with the small leaf trees and creates all these feelings. He's thinking about your sequence of experiences as you walk up this walk. It's just astounding the level of detail at which he worked and understood how you were going to experience walking up this hill.
Hi.
Now we think of the government as sort of doing things
I forgot to use
haphazardly,
this
but
back
here's
there.
an example of planning ahead. This is a giant sequoia. There's another one on the other side. If you come back in 3,000 years, the Capitol will be framed by two huge giant sequoias. And if that doesn't happen, by the way, I promise you your $10 back.
3,000 years. Okay, set
At
the alarm.
moment, it looks pretty happy. It looked pretty unhappy for quite a while. But there it is, giant sequoia, and it is dedicated. You see, it has a gold plaque.
Yeah.
It is dedicated to Sequoia himself. Did you know that the tree species is named after the man?
Chief Sequoia.
Well, he was not the chief, but you know what he did?
No.
He made a written language for the Cherokees.
Ah.
He was illiterate and spoke no English, but he knew that if you spoke English, you could look at squiggles on a piece of paper and know what it said. So he made up squiggles for the Cherokee language. It is the only written Native American language, and they still publish books and magazines in the newspapers in the Cherokee language, which Sequoia himself assembled.
Hi.
Guys, we're looking for the big white statue. Those far low trees are all carried. There's like 18 stories.
Homestead would not have approved.
Hi.
Everyone goes left or right.
I don't know.
This way, Mecca.
This is what I call the hidden jewel.
We gotta try to get you some water, Mecca.
On a real hot summer day, it'll be 30 degrees cooler. You've got this over here. And the thing with this as Central Park is that constructed landscape, all the rock is rolling in the window, and all the ivy and ferns and this is where he would allow valuable plants. In Central Park, Homestead had a real problem with filtering. And so he put it because they were only allowing more rare plants in here, wall off. This is Chinese design, but Homestead had a staffer who was an architect named Thomas Wisedell, and he was infatuated with Chinese design. In that area, they call it chinois d'Orient. So that's what you see here. I mean, a lot of the street furniture around the Capitol didn't kind of do that. You've got the tile roof and the brick arches, pressed brick, and then the stone screens, and even this grill work here. Very Chinese looking. He has the benches in here for people to appreciate it. But again, not enough room to lay down here. And he's got the air holes here to circulate the air in here so it doesn't get too tight. But also, all the views can be seen by the officers passing by to make sure that nobody does in in here that the Homestead wouldn't approve of. But
Is
in
it-
the center,
yeah.
he had what he called a water carillon. And there was a very elaborate fountain here that sprayed out water and then had little drawers all over it to catch the water. When they got full, they would dump the water into a bell, ring the bell. It was made by Tiffany and Company in New York, and it worked beautifully in their offices up here, but when they brought it down up there, but when they brought it down here, it never did work. Finally, they took it away and it was lost somewhere. So we don't even know what it looked like. No drawings of it, but they described it. And the object here is that the water would continuously flow here, and I hung a ladle on here, and you would stick the ladle under there and get the drink. Then we discovered germs. This is actually city water here, but it does not flow back into the system. But originally, the theory of water at that time was that water cleaned itself every 7 miles. And that was the theory that they operated on before EPA. So they thought that the water would clean itself as long as you kept it flowing. So they decided to do away with that, and they come up with these incredibly ugly water fountains. So you know Ted Bechtel, the Brown superintendent?
Yeah, I got a proof.
Yes, yeah. He was writing this plan for the Capitol grounds for 20 years plus. And so I suggested they put in the plan to come up with something aesthetically for the water fountain. But they are doing the historic structures report here. Originally there was a wooden, brick floor that's probably underneath the concrete here. There's a cast iron beam underneath this concrete here, which of course is deteriorated by having the concrete put around it. So we're trying to decide what the best plan is. Those are planters on top of the arches, and Olmsted specified yuccas and evergreens, so they didn't have any water. He was always conscious of the maintenance problem. There are supposed to be 2 large trees, but one of them over here fell in the storm, and the one over here got to be so big it was pushing against the building and pushing the building over, so it had to take them both out. And so you can see what we got here. Little tree just started, and another little tree just started on the other side, started out the top there. So eventually they will provide more shade and more cooling. It's located here because they knew that most people would be coming by foot or horseback from the northwest. So this is halfway up the hill, but you don't even notice it coming down the hill. It's very unobtrusive, but it is the oasis for people coming halfway up. Now, who knows what senator might have come out here historically and cooled off during the debate and saved the country.
What he didn't do the similar thing on the house side.
Because the house wouldn't pay for it. That's why.
This was artesian originally, I think.
What?
This was an artesian well originally. I think the water bubbled up out of it.
No,
No?
it was not artesian.
Oh, okay.
There was a spring here, but it dried up fairly rapidly. So this is all we can see.
Oh, okay. Well, the movie Journey to the Center of the Earth, yeah, it's right that view there.
Now, what there was that when Montgomery Meigs designed, Montgomery Meigs was brought here because of the fire that destroyed the library in 1851. And he was to build a new library. And the problem with the library was that they hadn't been able to get any water up the hill to put the fire out. So he devises, being an engineer right out of West Point, he devises a water system that starts at Great Fall, or Little Fall, and brings the water down here. Well, what do you do with the water? Well, let's just supply drinking water for the whole city. So because of that fire and the need to get the water down here, but how are you going to flush the fire system? They put a fountain out here. It wasn't artesian.
Uh-huh.
It was driven by gravity feed from little falls.
Ah,
So there was a fountain out here that shot water, but it was in the center.
ah,
And that's early.
okay. Thank you.
Well,
Well, it's good to take a tour. Sure. Oh, alhamdulillah, water. You need water, Mecca. Hi. You need water, Mecca. Oh. Hi. Hi. What do you see, Mecca? Come on, we got to keep up with the tour. Good, Mecca. You need water. You need water. Wow.
It is a willow oak. Homestead liked willow oaks because they have tiny leaves and they leave shadows.
It must have been trimmed on that. I was looking on that side. Mostly.
Yeah, because
A little bit
the
that way.
weather comes from that side.
Hi. Good, Mecca.
Now you can see that part with the arched window and the round window. That is the oldest part of the building. It was finished in 1800. And that's part of that original building. And you can see the skylight on top now from this side. All of that center section is sandstone from the quarry that I talked about down in Stafford County. And by the way, that quarry is now a county park. It's a wonderful little park down there. Nice excursion. Yeah, 45 miles. 95. That arched window goes into what's now the Republican Senate leader's office. But originally that was the library. And being the second largest room in the Capitol, when that was the whole Capitol, that's where the House of Representatives met. The Senate used the larger room even though they were a smaller body, because of course it was their room and they were waiting for the house to be built on the other side.
And because they're the Senate.
Yes, yes.
Not my house camera. I can't remember. Absolutely.
That tradition goes back that far. Anyway, the first major...
100 egos.
Yeah, I know.
The first major decision that they had to make after moving to Washington and meeting in that room was the outcome of the election of 1800. That was the one where for the first time the president and vice president ran as a ticket, and the Constitution wasn't prepared for that, and so somebody expected one of the electors to vote for somebody besides Aaron Burr for vice president, but they didn't. They all voted the ticket. And so Washington and Jefferson and Aaron Burr tied in electoral college votes. And so we had to amend the Constitution so that the electors vote separately for president and vice president. It ruined the original system, which was intended to have the first person with the highest votes be president, the person with the second highest votes be vice president. But now they're running together, so they've got the same number of votes. And Aaron Burr had seen the opportunity. So he went to the Federalists and said, hey, I'm not Thomas Jefferson. Let me instead, I'll be more cooperative. So he tried to game the system. It's only the fourth election. And the whole future of elected government is hanging on that decision. Thomas Jefferson and Aaron Burr stood on either side of that window for a week through 36 months. So finally, one congressman decided that they were gaming the system, and that really wasn't what they should be doing.
Do we know who that was?
Yes, Thomas Byard. No, is it John Byard? Anyway, it's one of the
I think you're
Byards
right,
from
Thomas
Delaware.
Byard, yep.
Thomas Byard.
Yep. Who was a signer
Yes.
to the Constitution.
Yeah. I'm not sure it was him. It may have been his son.
Okay.
No, I mean he's a Federalist.
Hi, Steve.
Anyway, so Byard and gets two other congressmen who hold the balance of power in their states to abstain. he abstains, and he's the only one from Delaware, and therefore he controlled the whole state delegation. So it was just enough votes to elect Jefferson, because they knew that's what the people had intended. Nobody intended to elect Aaron Burr. But the whole future of elected government was riding on that vote, and those two guys were standing on either side of that window. Just an amazing moment.
No, looking at that, which of the 5 windows on that second floor would have been at?
The big one.
Oh, the center one.
It's the first floor from our viewpoint here.
Okay,
It's the second floor in the Capitol.
okay,
It's the big window,
gotcha.
and that went into the library room where the House was meeting.
With Burr as president, you think it would have changed? Hamilton would have appreciated that.
Come on, Mecca. Come on, Mecca. Good, Mecca. You need water. You need water.
Now the Senate is
Yep.
And they make
They could have been left there.
I would have said Pennsylvania, but they were in, I guess they would have been in Philadelphia.
Yeah, you see the
Oh,
you see the wrought iron balcony up there. Inside that, this whole extension on the building that sticks out here was the Library of Congress. And it was called the most beautiful room in America. It was all gilded wood, but they were mortally afraid of fire. They wouldn't allow any candles in the room, and eventually it did burn up. But for that period, this part of yeah, they'd listen to you before they listen to me.
Yeah,
Anyway, the balcony was just outside the most beautiful room in America. And it had the most spectacular view.
the electric cart breaking the speed limit.
So come up here, we can see Pennsylvania Avenue.
last 2 years I worked with you.
From this spot right here, you can see the Treasury building at the end there, and the White House is behind that. That is Pennsylvania Avenue. That's our great national parade route. You can see it from up there even better. The biggest parade.
Oh, say, those electric carts, they gotta tell them to observe a slower speed limit, please.
Okay.
They almost hit our tour group here, and I've seen them come down the hill. There's a blind driveway there at the well. They don't slow down for it.
Okay. One of our shuttle cars that takes.
Yeah, those shuttle electric carts. He's going too fast.
Okay. I'll say something next time when I see him.
Please, please. Thank you very much, Officer Doke.
All right.
They knew how to end a war properly.
So I was just looking at that he was assassinated 5 days after Lee surrendered.
Yes.
5 days.
5 days after Lee surrendered, what?
After Lee surrendered and the war was over, he was assassinated 5 days. All in the
5 days.
terrible.
And there were witnesses he was really killed.
What he would have thought. I mean,
Yes.
in those 5 days.
Yeah.
It's probably part of the deal to end the war because they lost their slaves.
At that time, Washington Monument was a stub.
Yeah.
You know where the can't see it now. of course,
No, you can't see the stone break,
But
can you?
there are two different colors of stone there. And for 40 years, Washington was characterized right at the center with this unfinished stub, an indication of the unfinished nature of our society. We had these grand plans, but we couldn't carry them out. So the best place to see Washington was where those people were standing up there.
Yeah.
Congressmen and senators would bring their guests up there. We know that Abraham Lincoln stood up there.
And the
We
next,
also know that
yeah.
Fanny, the actress, Fanny Kemble, stood up there, and she wrote about it because
Ethel Kennedy came by before she died and hung out with me right up there on that terrace where we used to be able to go. Vincent Fox from Mexico came by one morning. Now we can't go up there anymore. It's not right.
Well, it ain't gonna change.
Yeah, we get outdoor metal detectors here in this tour. We can volunteer to man them with the police, and then we can go up again. God willing.
Now, I told you about those two streets that paralleled Pennsylvania and Maryland avenues here. They were called Missouri
Shoot their picture.
Oh, sorry.
and Maine avenues after the Missouri Compromise.
What were they named?
Missouri and Maine.
Missouri and Maine.
Yeah. On 6th Street, at what's now Independence, was then B Street, were the two largest slave markets in the Middle Atlantic states. And Fanny Kemble could see them from up there.
Wow.
She wrote about the fact that you could, from the most beautiful room in America, you see the ugliest thing about America.
Wow.
And they would transport the slaves at night with no lights.
Oh.
So you'd be out in the dark, no street lights or anything, and you'd hear this shuffling noise as these chained people walked by.
Wow.
Spooky. Now, of course, for the inauguration, they built a platform on top of the fountain here to shut off from the anyway. And the president walked down from the door.
Gotta get a drink, Mecca, here. Here's next. Hey, get a drink. Gotta get a drink of water. Here, get a drink. Get a drink of water here. Drink some water. Here. Drink some water. Drink some water. Drink some water. Here. Get some water. Drink some water. Good, Mecca. Good, Mecca. Perfect. Drink some water, Mecca. Good, Mecca. Good, Mecca. Perfect. Drink some water, Mecca. Good, Mecca. Good, Mecca. Good, Mecca. Perfect. Drink some water, Mecca. Good, Mecca. Okay. Good, Mecca. Good. Good, Mecca. Good, Mecca. Good. Good, Mecca. Good, Mecca. You feel better now? Good, Mecca. Hi. Be brave and be fair, right? Be brave and be fair, right? Please be careful. One of you guys came really close to our tour group. Another one of you guys ran the blind driveway by the drinking fountain over there. It's such a miracle that I'm sure they're happy they get there at all, let alone, get there with speed. It's such a small capital, there's only so much you can do. You're cramped and crowded here, but pedestrians have the right of way, and we got to think of them. Otherwise, we're going to end up with a Boston situation like at the marathon or something. People get so angry at you guys.
I think you made your point.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
So this is the official Capitol brochure that they allowed us to reprint for a project that we're doing. Just inside is the first drawing. And they decided to put a statue up there when they designed the dome, and I already talked about them finishing with it with the contractor. But when they decided early on to put the statue up there, they some people wanted a statue of George Washington. People felt we had enough statues of George Washington, we should move on. And so they asked the artists. They had hired the most prominent American sculptor, Thomas Crawford, and they asked him who he thought should be up there. And he suggested freedom, and this is his drawing that he submitted. They decided it was too detailed to be 300 feet in the air, so they asked him to simplify it, and he made a maquette, and this is what this second drawing is in the next panel. You can see he simplified it, but you can see on that woman is the freedom cap. That's actually the Roman symbol of freedom. It's that cap called the Phrygian cap that makes the figure represent freedom in Roman symbolism. We called it a liberty cap, and we used it during the Revolution. But the Romans called it the Phrygian cap. And unfortunately, the army was supervising the construction of the building, since all of the engineers in the government were in the army. Did I give you one of these?
No, I bet I've got one.
Well, but you needed to. We're talking about the two drawings there.
Yeah.
So, Thomas Crawford has suggested putting the Phrygian cap on there, but the Secretary of War had a classical education and he knew the story of the Phrygian cap, which J is the one on this figure here. Under Roman law, you were born a piece of property of your father, and freedom is a gift you receive from your father later on in life if you have pleased him, or if he wants to get rid of you. It works either way. But you would wear that cap for a few years to let everyone know you were now free. The Secretary of War said, you know, that doesn't really apply to Americans, because Americans are born free. It is a right to us and not a gift.
Yeah.
And so that cap actually is a symbol of prior servitude. And Americans haven't been anybody's servant. It's not appropriate to Americans. So he asked the artists to come up with an American symbolism. Well, you can't see it too well in this photograph on the front, but on this is a photograph of the plaster original that is in the visitor center now that you can see up close. And you can see it's an eagle's head, and the feathers come out of the eagle's head. There's no eagle that looks like that. It couldn't fly. The feathers are loose in the back, as you can see on the front of the brochure, and they really look more like turkey feathers than eagle feathers. The talons of the eagle hang down over her ears, and their function isn't really clear. In a real battle, they would just scratch her, not protect her. So we wonder if maybe Thomas Crawford didn't make up something silly in hopes they would let him go back to the Phrygian cap. But the Secretary of War that asked him to change the cap was Jefferson Davis. And Davis knew that the Romans had freed their slaves regularly, and that a freed slave would wear that Phrygian cap. He was not having a freed slave on top of the Capitol. He didn't even want his slaves thinking about the possibility of freedom. And so he insisted, and this is what we got, is this silly looking thing. I don't know what Thomas Crawford would think if he knew that we could see it up close, because he intended that you only see it from this distance.
Yeah, it faces Quibla towards the Holy Land of a great circle route.
Well, it's placed there because Ellicott turned the Capitol around.
Yeah.
It's the only symbolism.
Yeah, sort of.
Ellicott wanted to have that plaza out in front, so he moves the Capitol over and makes it face that way.
Yeah, militarily the high ground was the place to be in the old days and shoot down on
That had nothing to do with the decision.
the rising sun.
What's your theory on why she's facing east, though?
Because that's the front of the building.
They say west front and east front. It's supposed to have now. Oh,
Yeah.
but only since they've moved the inauguration around.
Ah,
So we decided to put Freedom up there, and Thomas Crawford made that plaster original, which is in the Visitor Center, in Rome. He had chosen Freedom because he worked in Rome and Florence, and he had joined the Revolution of 1848, joined the militia in Rome to try to help them achieve freedom. And he watched them lose. So he knew the price that people are willing to pay for freedom, which is to give their lives for other people's freedom. And he knew that freedom was the thing that Americans had that Europeans wanted. That, he said, is the thing we should put on top of the Capitol. So, so they decided to put it up there, and he makes this plaster model in Rome, where he worked, and shipped it over here. He had wanted to have the statue cast in Munich, where the great bronze works were. But we didn't want some foreign group making our statue, so we ship it over here, and we think we're good enough, we can make our own. And that same foundry has already cast the Andrew Jackson statue in Lafayette Park, which was a spectacular statue. It was the first statue ever of a rearing horse like that, balanced on two legs. So they thought Clark Mills was wonderful, and so he gets the contract, and he makes the statue in that foundry with slave labor. So the Statue of Freedom was cast into bronze by enslaved African Americans. But they were working on it on April 16th, 1862, which is Emancipation Day here in Washington, and so the people working on the statue got their freedom while they were working on it.
that's cool.
There was appropriated money to pay them to go right on doing the same jobs they'd been doing before, because slavery in the district consisted of rented labor. So they had to have appropriated money. They didn't own the slaves. So there was money there to pay them to go right on doing the same jobs, and they finished the statue and got to help install it on top. We know the name of one of them, Philip Reed, and he has many descendants here in Washington today. So they installed the statue in December of 1863, right after the Battle of Gettysburg. We call that the high tide of the Confederacy, because ever after that the Union armies were pushing the Confederate armies back until all of the enslaved people were free. So we decided in 1855 to put Freedom on top of the Capitol without a clue how we were going to carry it out. And yet by the time we got it up there, we knew what we had to do, and we did it. That's what we do in this building. We make promises, and then we figure out how to carry them out. Now that's my favorite story, and I can't top that, so I'm going to quit here. Other questions? Thank you all for your attention.
Good, oh, you're welcome.
And you can go back to the office with us.
Yeah, you got more work, man.
Any thoughts, Jay? Jay just retired, so he's very proud of the fact that he doesn't have to work. Okay, thank you all for listening.
Yeah, likewise.
Make your acquaintance after seeing you often on the street.
Yeah,
Good luck to you this summer.
may God accept our efforts.
Yes.
Thanks for the
Okay.
tour.
Yes.
Good job, Mecca.
I have a car shop.
Oh, yeah.
They call and you go, oh, yeah, what's the problem?
Well, I'm going to go around and go inside. Well, no, because I can't get him. Can you take him in? Okay. So, and we'll go ride the train.
Good. Good, Mecca. Okay. Okay, come on, Mecca. Good. What is it, Mecca? Come on. Come on, you love the grass and the shade. Good, Mecca. Good, Mecca.
Hey, Bill.
It's not Tuesday, but I thought I'd say hi anyway, Steve. How you doing? What's happening?
Yeah.
Okay,
Come on,
okay.
just keep me busy running from here to running to there, running to there.
Yeah.
It's hot out,
Mm.
you know?
Yeah. Well, may
Your
God
doggy-
accept our
your doggy
efforts.
doesn't look good, buddy.
Yeah, so much waiting. A victim of the internet information wars.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we're gonna have to find shade, I guess, for Mecca.
What's wrong with Mecca? I mean,
Having to wait so much, we don't get outside as much as I wanted to. So Mecca has to. God willing, Steve. Come on, Mecca. Come on, Mecca. Hi. Teamwork, families, value, independence, and teamwork. Isn't that right? Teamwork, families, value, independence, and teamwork. Isn't that right? Hi.
How you doing, sir?
Good, and you? Glad to hear it. Gotta find that old one I did. Hi. Knee. Fine stuff. What do you smell, Mecca? We gotta go around and what? Cool off. I need to eat lunch. We need to pray. Now what, Mecca? Lunch. Hi. Perfect empty out, Mecca. Good, Mecca. Where's the empty out bag? Here. Good, Mecca. Yeah, that's pretty slow there. That's more courteous. That's looks about right. Good. Pedestrians have the right of way. Perfect empty out, Mecca. Good, Mecca. Good, Mecca. Good, Mecca. Okay, Mecca. Good. Hi. Hi. Good. Hi. Got enough for a couple more hours. Wow, I'm hungry. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. What time is it? I and who else now rejoin the intention to make or make up what prayer or prayers as Zur prayer for the 24th, I guess it is. I and who else need to touch and hold whose Messiah self-repair, soft and hardware, dance and songbook thread, whose holy Quran, whose holy Bible. Am I and who else clean enough to pray? You need wudu. I don't know what time it is. Okay. Clean enough to pray. I guess it's about noon. 12:43. Timer done. I'm gonna get another food thing. Go in and get food there.